He was born a prince, but raised a peasant. Now, destiny calls him home, to claim the crown that truth, not blood, has chosen. The sky over Green Valley was darker than anyone could remember. Thunder rolled through the clouds like angry drums, and the wind carried whispers of fear. Inside the royal palace, King Edward lay weak on his bed, his breath shallow, his crown resting on a stool beside him. The guards stood in silence, their faces heavy with worry. The chief priest burned incense near the king's bed, murmuring prayers under his breath. The queen, Lady Grace, held her husband's hand tightly. Tears fell down her cheeks. "Grace," the king whispered, his voice trembling, "the throne must not fall into the wrong hands." His words came with effort. "Promise me, if anything happens, protect Daniel." Lady Grace nodded, though her heart broke at every word. "I will, my king. I will protect our son with my life." Just then, a loud crash came from the palace gates. The sound of shouting soldiers followed. The queen's eyes widened. "What's happening?" she cried. A young guard rushed in, breathing hard. "Your Majesty, it's Lord Henry. He's leading men to the palace. They say the king is dead already, and that the throne must pass to him." King Edward's eyes darkened. "Henry, my own brother." He tried to rise, but could not. His body trembled. "Grace, take Daniel. Leave now." Lady Grace hesitated. "But now!" the king shouted, with the last strength in his voice. Lightning flashed through the palace windows. The queen snatched the infant prince from his cradle and wrapped him in a brown cloth. She looked one last time at her husband, the man she loved, the king who had ruled with peace and kindness. Outside, the courtyard was chaos. Soldiers loyal to Lord Henry stormed in, shouting, pushing aside those who still guarded the true king. The queen, with her maid Clara, slipped through a secret passage at the back of the palace. The rain poured hard as they ran into the forest behind Green Valley. Every tree seemed to whisper her name. Every thunderclap seemed to chase her. "Clara," the queen said, between breaths, "take the boy. Go to the city. Find Father Thomas in Silver Lake. Tell him this child must never be known as a prince." Clara's hands shook as she took the baby. "My queen, what about you?" "I'll stay and face them," she said, her eyes full of courage and tears. "If they find us both gone, they will search forever. But if they find me here, they will believe the child is lost." Clara wanted to argue, but the queen pressed her hand. "Go for the future of Green Valley." Through the heavy rain, Clara ran, clutching the child tightly. Behind her, the palace walls echoed with the scream of betrayal. By the time Lord Henry reached the king's chamber, it was too late. King Edward was gone. His last words had faded into silence. Lord Henry stood beside the bed, eyes cold and ambitious. "The throne is mine now," he said softly. In the darkness, lightning flashed again, and for a brief moment, the portrait of King Edward seemed to glare at him with anger. Miles away, in the forest road leading to Silver Lake, Clara hid under a tree, holding the baby close. The child opened his eyes and smiled faintly, as if unaware of the storm that had begun his story. She whispered, "Sleep, my little prince. One day, you'll return to where you belong. One day, the rightful throne will call your name." The rain kept falling, washing away footprints and tears, but not destiny. That night, a kingdom lost its king, a mother lost her child, and the story of a hidden prince began. The city of Silver Lake never slept. Cars honked endlessly, streetlights glowed like restless stars, and the air carried a mix of exhaust and hope. Amidst the crowd of dreamers, a young man named Daniel wiped grease off his hands and leaned against the rusty gate of a mechanic workshop. He was tall, quiet, and hard-working, the kind of person who drew respect without trying. To the other boys, he was just Danny the Fixer, an orphan raised by Father Thomas, the priest who ran the old church nearby. But to Destiny, he was something much greater. "Daniel!" a voice called from inside the garage. It was Tunda, the owner. "Stop dreaming and hand me that wrench." Daniel smiled faintly. "Yes, sir." He handed the tool and went back to work on a customer's old pickup truck. His hands moved with skill, but his mind was elsewhere. Far away, in dreams he could never explain. Every now and then, he'd hear drums echoing in his sleep, or see flashes of a woman crying in the rain. That evening, as the workshop closed, Father Thomas came to fetch him. "You work too hard, my boy," the priest said with a kind smile. "The world is bigger than this workshop." Daniel laughed. "Father, I'm just trying to live right." Father Thomas looked at him thoughtfully. "Yes, but sometimes right living also means finding where you truly belong." Those words lingered in Daniel's heart like an echo. That night, the wind over Silver Lake carried a strange calm. Daniel lay on his small bed in the church quarters, staring at the ceiling. He felt restless, like something was missing. Suddenly, a faint sound filled the room, a soft, rhythmic beat, like distant drums. He sat up, heart racing. "What is that?" The sound faded. Only the crickets outside remained. Daniel rubbed his chest and whispered, "Why does it feel so familiar?" The next morning, while helping Father Thomas at the church gate, a stranger arrived, an old woman wrapped in colorful cloth. Her eyes were sharp, her voice cracked by age. "I'm looking for the boy called Daniel," she said. Father Thomas frowned. "And who are you, madam?" The woman smiled sadly. "Someone who knew his mother." Daniel froze. "My mother?" Father Thomas quickly interrupted. There must be some mistake, but the woman ignored him and turned to Daniel. "You have your father's eyes and your mother's courage. The time will soon come when you must return to where the drums call from." Before Daniel could speak, the woman reached into her wrapper and handed him a small wooden pendant carved in the shape of a crown. "Keep this safe," she whispered. "It will lead you home." Then, just as suddenly, she turned and disappeared into the busy street. Daniel stood there, speechless, the pendant clutched in his hand. Father Thomas looked worried. "Where did she come from?" Daniel asked. The priest sighed deeply. Some pasts are better left in the past, but Daniel could not let it go. That night, as he turned the pendant over in his hand, he noticed strange markings on the back, symbols he had never seen before. They looked ancient, royal, and powerful. A strange warmth filled his chest. For the first time in his life, he felt something awaken, a pull he could not resist. Outside his window, the city lights flickered, and far away, the drums of Green Valley began to echo once more. Fate had started its whisper. The lost prince was beginning to remember. The sun rose slowly over Green Valley, but its light carried no joy. The village that once sang with life now moved in quiet obedience. The palace gates were guarded by men in dark armor, their faces stern and unfriendly. The market women no longer sang as they sold their goods, and the children played without laughter. On the throne sat Lord Henry, now called King Henry, wearing the crown that once belonged to his brother. His rule brought wealth to himself, but sorrow to the people. The palace walls that used to echo with music and wisdom were now filled with silence and fear. Beside him sat his wife, Lady Ruth, proud and cunning, her smile sharp as a blade. They had a son, Caleb, a spoiled young man who cared for nothing but his own pleasure. During a council meeting, the old chiefs bowed before King Henry, though their hearts were heavy. One of them, Chief Benjamin, cleared his throat and spoke softly. "My king," he said, "the people are troubled. The rains have stopped, and the river that feeds our farms has turned shallow. They say the gods are angry." King Henry frowned. "Angry? Angry at what? I feed them, I protect them, and still they complain." Another chief spoke. "The priests say the throne is restless, that the true bloodline has not yet taken its seat." The king's face darkened. "Enough of that foolish talk. The true king sits before you now. Anyone who speaks otherwise will be punished." The hall fell silent. The chiefs bowed again, too afraid to speak. From the corner of the room, the Queen Mother, old and frail, watched quietly. She had said little since her son Edward's death, but her eyes carried the weight of truth. She knew what had happened that stormy night. She knew that her grandson, Prince Daniel, was still alive, somewhere. Later that night, as the palace slept, she sat by her window, staring at the full moon. A soft voice broke the silence. It was her loyal maid, Naomi. "My queen," Naomi whispered, "why do you not tell the people the truth?" The Queen Mother sighed. "If I speak, they will kill me. But one day, the truth will walk back into this palace on its own feet." Naomi nodded sadly. "Do you still believe he lives?" The old woman smiled faintly. "A mother always knows. The river still sings his name." Just then, a strong wind swept through the palace, blowing out the oil lamp. The Queen Mother looked up. "Even the wind remembers," she murmured. In the village, strange things had begun to happen. Crops withered, and birds flew away from the valley. The elders said the land was rejecting its false ruler. The people started to whisper again about the night the true prince vanished, and how the river had taken a child and never returned him. Among them was Grace, a young schoolteacher who often told stories to the village children. One day, she told them, truth will rise like the morning sun. No lie lasts forever. Her words spread quietly from one ear to another, lighting small sparks of hope in weary hearts. In the palace, King Henry could not sleep. He tossed and turned, haunted by dreams of a baby crying in the storm and his brother's face fading in the rain. He woke in a sweat, whispering, "Daniel." Lady Ruth stirred beside him. "Who is Daniel?" He froze, staring into the dark. "No one," he lied. But deep in his heart, he knew, no matter how high he sat, the throne beneath him was shaking. And far away, in Silver Lake, the same moon shone on Daniel's face as he turned in his sleep, clutching the pendant that now glowed faintly under the moonlight. The rightful heir was being called home, and the false king's time was beginning to crumble. The morning in Silver Lake began like any other. Cars honked, traders shouted, and the smell of roasted corn filled the air. But for Daniel, the day felt strange. The moment he stepped out of his room, the wind brushed against his face like a whisper from somewhere far away. As he walked to the mechanic workshop, a low rhythm began to beat faintly in his ears. Boom, boom, boom. It wasn't from any radio or passing car. It sounded old, ancient, like a heartbeat calling his name. He stopped on the roadside, looking around. People moved as usual, unaware of the sound that filled his soul. That evening, Father Thomas noticed Daniel was quiet during dinner. "My son," he said softly, "you've been distant. Are you well?" Daniel hesitated. "Father, do you ever feel like something far away is calling you? Like you belong somewhere else?" The priest smiled gently. "The heart remembers what the mind forgets." Daniel looked at him. "What does that mean?" Father Thomas only sighed. "It means the truth always finds its way, even through dreams." That night, Daniel could not sleep. The drums grew louder. He sat up, breathing heavily. The wooden pendant on his neck began to glow faintly again. Suddenly, the sound of drums became clear, powerful, echoing from every direction. Then came a vision. He stood in a vast field under a full moon. Around him were tall trees, and in the center stood a circle of drummers dressed in white. They beat the drums in perfect rhythm. A woman's voice rose through the sound, soft and sorrowful. "Daniel, the river remembers your name." He turned, but there was only mist. "Who are you?" he shouted. The voice replied, "The throne waits for truth. The river waits for its son." The drums thundered, and Daniel woke up, drenched in sweat. The pendant was warm against his chest. The next day, he couldn't focus at work. Tunda shouted at him for dropping a wrench, but Daniel barely heard him. His heart raced with the echo of the dream. That evening, he went to Father Thomas. "I saw something," Daniel said urgently. "There were drums and a woman calling my name. She said the throne waits for truth." Father Thomas froze. The color drained from his face. "What did you say?" he asked slowly. Daniel repeated the words. The priest looked down, trembling slightly. "There are things I swore never to reveal, but perhaps it's time." He walked to an old wooden chest and opened it. Inside lay a faded letter wrapped in cloth. "Your mother gave this to me the night she brought you here," Father Thomas said quietly. "She said, 'It must only be opened when destiny calls.'" Daniel's hands shook as he unwrapped the letter. The paper was old and stained with water, but the words were clear. "My son, if you ever find this, know that you are Daniel Edward of Green Valley, heir to the rightful throne. The truth will always find you. Follow the drums. They will lead you home." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. "My mother? The Queen?" Father Thomas nodded slowly. "Yes, my boy. You are the son of King Edward, the lost prince of Green Valley." The room fell silent, except for the sound of Daniel's heartbeat. After a long pause, he whispered, "Then I must go back." The priest gripped his shoulder. "The path will be dangerous, but truth is never easy. When you go, go with courage and faith." Daniel looked toward the window. In the distance, thunder rolled faintly, like a drum. He stood tall, his eyes burning with new purpose. "The drums are calling," he said. "It's time I answered." That night, as the city lights flickered below, Daniel packed a small bag, tucked the pendant beneath his shirt, and stepped into the darkness. The journey had begun. The road to Green Valley was long and rough. Dust rose beneath the tires of the old bus as Daniel sat by the window, his small bag beside him. Every bump made his heart race faster. He was leaving behind the noise of Silver Lake for the unknown silence of the land that once called him home. The farther the bus went, the more the city faded. Tall buildings gave way to endless farmlands, then to red earth and thick forests. Children ran along the roadside, waving at the bus. Goats wandered freely near the fields. For the first time, Daniel felt peace. and fear at the same time. By the time the bus stopped near a small wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Green Valley," the sun was already setting. A soft orange glow bathed the land, and Daniel stepped down, clutching his pendant. The air smelled of wet soil and palm trees. A young man was waiting by the road, fixing a bicycle. "Need help, brother?" Daniel asked politely. The man looked up, smiling. "Ah, you must be from the city. Your shoes already tell your story." Daniel laughed softly. "You could say that?" "I'm Samuel," the man said, extending his hand. "Welcome to Green Valley." "Daniel," he replied. They walked together down the dusty path that led into the village. Huts made of red clay stood neatly in rows, smoke rising from cooking fires. Children's laughter filled the air. Yet Daniel noticed something else. The villagers looked cautious. Their smiles faded whenever they saw him. That evening, Samuel took him to a small guest hut. "You can rest here tonight. Tomorrow I'll take you to the chief." Daniel nodded gratefully, but as night fell, the same distant drumming returned. Soft at first, then louder, echoing through the valley. He stepped outside, staring into the darkness. Shadows moved near the forest's edge. Suddenly, an old woman appeared beside him. Her back was bent, and her eyes seemed to hold stories older than time. "You came," she whispered. "The river has waited for you, child of the throne." Daniel froze. "You know me?" The woman nodded. "Your father's blood runs in your veins. But beware, not everyone here welcomes the return of truth." Before Daniel could speak again, she disappeared into the mist. Only the sound of the drums remained. The next morning, Samuel led him to the palace square, a large compound with carved wooden gates. Guards in traditional attire stood tall, spears in hand. The chief sat on a wooden throne, wearing beads and a calm but watchful expression. Samuel bowed. "Chief, this man came from the city. He says he is looking for something." Daniel stepped forward, bowing slightly. "I am Daniel. My mother once lived here. I've come to find out where I truly belong." The chief's eyes narrowed. "Your name again?" "Daniel Edward." The room fell silent. A few elders exchanged uneasy glances. The chief leaned forward. "That name is forbidden here. King Edward's line was wiped out years ago." Daniel's voice trembled slightly. "Then I am the ghost of his memory." He pulled out his wooden pendant. This was his. My mother gave it to me. The chief's hand shook slightly. "Leave this place," he said softly but firmly. "You bring danger with you." Two guards stepped forward, but Samuel quickly blocked them. "He means no harm." Daniel met the chief's eyes. "I will not stay if I am not wanted, but I will not run from my truth either." He turned and walked out of the palace square, his heart heavy but his steps firm. As he reached the village path again, a shadowy figure watched him from behind the palm trees. Prince Raymond, the man who had taken the throne after King Edward's death. His eyes burned with cold suspicion. "Send word to my men," he said quietly to his guard. "The stranger must not live long enough to speak the truth." The wind picked up again, carrying the faint beat of the drums through the valley. The call of destiny had brought Daniel home, but now it had also awakened enemies he never knew existed. The morning mist hung low over Green Valley. The air was thick with tension, the kind that whispers of something unseen. Daniel woke before sunrise, the faint beat of the drums still echoing in his head. Each sound reminded him of the truth waiting to be revealed, and the danger that followed it. Samuel came early, carrying a bowl of porridge. "Eat, brother. You'll need strength." The chief doesn't usually allow strangers to speak twice. Daniel nodded, but barely ate. His mind replayed the chief's words. You bring danger with you. Outside, two palace guards walked past, whispering to each other. They didn't notice that Prince Raymond stood in the shadows, watching from the corner of the courtyard. Keep your eyes on the stranger, Raymond ordered his guard, quietly. If he goes near the forest or the river, tell me. He turned away, his gold beads clinking as he walked toward the palace. His face was calm, but his heart was not. For years, he had ruled Green Valley through fear, convincing the people that King Edward's bloodline had vanished forever. But now, the ghost of that bloodline had returned, alive and breathing. Later that day, Daniel went to the market square. The villagers greeted him with cautious smiles, their eyes filled with curiosity. A few older men whispered, pointing at his face. He looks like the old king, one muttered. Same eyes. Same walk. At a fruit stall, an old man approached Daniel and handed him a ripe mango. You don't remember me, do you? The man asked softly. Daniel frowned. Should I? I served your father, the man said, glancing around nervously. You were a child when the fire took the palace. Your mother fled that night. She saved you. Daniel's chest tightened. My father? What happened to him? The man's eyes darkened. He was betrayed from within. The throne was stolen. Be careful. Shadows still walk among us. Before Daniel could ask more, the man slipped back into the crowd. That night, as Daniel lay awake, the drums returned, louder, closer. He stood and followed the sound outside. The moon lit the path as the rhythm guided him toward the riverbank. When he reached the water, the drumming stopped. The reflection of the moon rippled across the surface, and then he saw her again. The woman from his vision. She stood across the river, glowing faintly like a ghost in white. Daniel, she said, her voice carrying softly through the night air. The truth lies beneath the ashes. Trust no one in the palace. He stepped closer, whispering, Who are you? She smiled sadly. I am your mother's spirit, the one who carried you through the fire. The drums are our blood, calling you home. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. Why now? Because the throne must be cleansed with truth, she said. But beware of the king who fears light. Then she faded into mist. Daniel fell to his knees, his heart pounding. Behind him, dry leaves cracked under someone's foot. He turned sharply. Prince Raymond stepped out from the shadows, a cold smile on his face. Talking to ghosts now, stranger? Daniel stood up slowly. You've been following me. I follow what threatens my peace, Raymond replied. Tell me, who are you really? Daniel looked him straight in the eye. Maybe the man who will end your lie. Raymond's expression darkened. Careful, city boy. Green Valley swallows, strangers who speak too loudly. He turned and walked away, his words heavy with warning. Daniel watched him go, his heart steady despite the fear. He finally understood. The fight wasn't just about a throne. It was about truth against deceit, light against darkness. As thunder rolled over the valley, the drums began again, fierce and unyielding. Daniel clenched his fist around the pendant. If truth must return, he said softly, then I'll bring it, no matter what it costs. Above him, lightning split the sky, like the voice of destiny itself. The following days in Green Valley were filled with whispers. Some said the stranger was a prophet. Others said he was a curse. But one thing was certain, Daniel's presence had disturbed the peace of the palace. Prince Raymond sat in his royal chamber, eyes fixed on the flame of an oil lamp. His mind was restless. The ghost of King Edward's son now walked freely among the people, and the elders were beginning to ask questions. "Your Highness," his guard said cautiously, "the villagers are speaking of the boy. They say he carries the king's pendant." Raymond turned sharply. "Then it is true. The fool carries the proof himself." He stood, voice cold and sharp. "If he thinks he can challenge me, he'll learn how fragile truth can be in the hands of power." He called for Chief Marco, the palace advisor. "Spread word that we will hold a feast in honor of peace," Raymond ordered. "Invite the stranger. Let him eat with me under my roof." Mako hesitated. "And if he refuses?" Raymond smiled darkly. "He won't. Curiosity is a weakness." That evening, Samuel rushed into Daniel's hut. "Brother, the palace sent for you. The prince himself wants to meet you." Daniel frowned. "The same man who followed me to the river?" "Yes, but this time he speaks of peace." Daniel hesitated. The pendant around his neck grew warm again. The drums in his mind beat softly, warning him. Still, he nodded. "If truth hides in that palace, then I must walk into it." The palace was lit with dozens of torches that night. Music played and laughter filled the air, but beneath it all was tension. Raymond sat proudly on his throne, dressed in a red robe and golden beads. His smile looked kind, but his eyes were sharp. "Welcome, Daniel of Silver Lake," he said. "Sit. You are among friends tonight." Daniel bowed lightly. "Thank you, Your Highness." They ate, drank, and spoke in polite tones. But as the night deepened, Daniel began to feel dizzy. The room spun. The music echoed strangely. He looked down at his cup. Something wasn't right. Across the table, Raymond's smile widened. "You should rest, stranger. You look pale." Daniel tried to stand, but his legs gave way. The world went dark. When he woke, everything smelled of smoke. His vision blurred, but he saw flames licking the walls. The hut was burning. His bag, his mother's letter, gone. He stumbled outside into the night air, coughing. The village was in chaos. People screamed and ran with buckets of water. Sparks rained from the sky. Through the firelight, Daniel saw Samuel rushing toward him. "Daniel, they said you started it. The palace guards are coming for you." "What?" Daniel shouted. "I did nothing." Before he could explain, soldiers appeared from the shadows. "There he is," one shouted. "By the prince's order, seize him." Daniel turned and ran into the forest, his pendant glowing like a small star against the darkness. Behind him, the palace bells rang, not in celebration this time, but in warning. Prince Raymond stood at his balcony, watching the fire spread. His face was calm. "Let the people see what happens when ghosts return," he murmured. In the forest, Daniel collapsed beside a tree, gasping for breath. The drums began again, louder now, urgent, alive. And then, through the darkness, a figure stepped out, the old woman from before. Her eyes glowed faintly. "They have burned the lies," she said softly. "But fire cannot destroy truth. Rise, child of Edward. The throne has begun to shake." Daniel looked at her, his face streaked with soot and tears. "They'll kill me before I can prove who I am," she smiled. "Then let the river speak for you." He didn't understand her words yet, but deep inside, something stirred. As dawn approached, Daniel stood, watching the smoke rise from the valley. His mother's voice echoed in his heart. "The truth always finds its way." and for the first time he knew he would not run any more. The morning after the fire, the world was silent. Daniel walked barefoot through the forest, following the voice of the old woman. The air smelled of rain and smoke. Every step felt heavy, every sound too loud. "Where are you taking me?" he asked finally. "To the river that remembers," she said softly. "It has seen kings rise and fall. It saw your father's crown sink beneath its waters." Her words sent chills through him. The River Dawn, they called it, a long, winding stream that fed both the city and the village. The people said it was older than any king, wiser than any priest. When they reached its banks, the air shifted. Mist danced above the surface, and the water glowed faintly blue in the morning light. Daniel knelt, touching it gently. As his fingers met the water, the pendant at his neck pulsed again. 1, 2, 3 times, like a heartbeat. Then the world changed. Suddenly, he was no longer in the forest. He was standing inside the palace years in the past. He saw King Edward sitting on the throne, crown shining. He saw the Queen beside him, holding a baby, him. And then came the storm. The doors burst open. Raymond's father, Lord Gideon, stormed in with soldiers. "The king is dead," someone shouted. Swords clashed. The Queen ran, holding her son. Daniel watched in horror as the soldiers chased her to the riverbank. She whispered something into the pendant, then placed the baby in a small basket and pushed it into the current. The vision shattered. Daniel gasped, falling backward into the mud. The old woman was gone. Only the sound of the river remained. He held the pendant tightly. "So it's true. I am the lost prince." But even as he said it, doubt crept into his heart. "How do I make them believe me?" As the sun rose higher, a group of fishermen approached from the nearby village. One of them, an old man named Mr. Harris, stopped when he saw Daniel. "Boy, you look like someone who's seen the other side," he said kindly. Daniel smiled weakly. "Maybe I have." The man noticed the pendant and froze. "Where did you get that?" "It was my father's," Daniel said quietly. "King Edward's." Harris dropped to his knees, tears filling his eyes. "I was there the night the river carried you away. I helped your mother escape the palace. I thought you had drowned." Daniel knelt beside him. "Then help me return. Help me reclaim what's mine, not for power, but for truth." The old man nodded. "The people are ready, son. The prince, they know, brings fear, but the one the river brings back, he brings hope." By nightfall, the forest had become Daniel's hiding place and his council chamber. Villagers came in secret, men, women, and children. They listened as Daniel spoke, his voice calm but strong. "We've lived too long in fear," he said. "If the river can carry a child and keep him alive, then it can carry our truth too. Together, we rise." The crowd murmured in agreement. Samuel appeared from the shadows, alive and unharmed. "They said you were dead," he cried, embracing Daniel. "Not yet," Daniel said, with a faint smile, "but soon Raymond will wish I was." Back in the palace, Prince Raymond stared into his mirror. His reflection flickered. Behind him, for a brief moment, he thought he saw the ghost of King Edward, standing silently watching. He turned quickly, but no one was there. Chief Mako entered the room. "Your Highness, there are rumors. They say the boy lives." "The people are gathering near the river." Raymond's jaw tightened. "Then we drown them in it." That night, thunder rolled across Green Valley. The storm returned, just like the one from the past. And under that storm, by the same river that had once carried a baby prince to safety, two destinies began to move toward collision, one born of truth, the other of pride. As lightning flashed, Daniel stood at the riverbank once more, his pendant glowing bright. He whispered into the wind, "Father, I'm coming home." And the river answered with a roar. The storm had passed, but the palace was far from calm. Prince Raymond sat in the royal hall, his fingers tapping restlessly on the golden armrest. The air felt thick, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Chief Marco entered quietly, bowing. "My prince," he said in a trembling voice, "the whispers are spreading. The people speak of a boy who commands the river. They call him the son of the true king." Raymond's hand froze mid-air. His eyes, cold and sharp, met Mako's. "And you believe this story?" "I believe what the people believe," the chief replied carefully. "They say, when he touches the river, it glows." Raymond rose from his throne. His steps echoed across the marble floor. "Then we will drown their faith," he said. "I will show them that no river, no ghost, and no boy can challenge a king." That evening, he gathered his soldiers in the courtyard. "I want that boy found," he ordered. "Alive, if possible. Dead, if easier." The captain hesitated. "Your Highness, the people, they might resist. They love the boy." Raymond's voice dropped to a hiss. "Then make them fear him." Far from the palace, Daniel and Samuel moved cautiously through the forest, carrying food given by villagers who believed in him. The river sang softly beside them. "We can't keep hiding," Samuel said. "Sooner or later they'll find us." Daniel nodded. "Then let them. I won't run from truth anymore." He stood, lifting the pendant to the moonlight. "If I was born of a king, then I must act like one." As if answering him, the pendant glowed again, brighter this time. The river rippled, though there was no wind. From the water, a shape began to rise. It was the royal crown, the same one his father wore, shining, untouched by time. Daniel stared, frozen in disbelief. Samuel gasped, "It waited for you." Daniel reached into the water and lifted the crown. Drops ran down his arm like silver threads. The pendant stopped glowing, its purpose fulfilled. He whispered, "The river has spoken." Back in the city, strange things began to happen. The palace fountains stopped flowing. Wells ran dry, but in the villages, water overflowed, clean, fresh, endless. The people saw it as a sign. "The true king walks among us," they said. Panic spread through the palace. Even the guards whispered in fear. Raymond could feel it, the throne slipping away from under him. One night, he stood alone in the throne room. The candles flickered wildly, though the windows were closed. A cold voice filled the hall. "Your fear smells like smoke, Raymond." He spun around. No one was there. But the voice continued. "You built your rule on ashes. And now, the wind of truth has come." Raymond shouted, "Show yourself!" A sudden gust blew through, and the great doors flung open. For a moment, he saw his father's ghost, standing near the throne, silent, watching. Then it vanished. He sank to his knees, trembling. "Am I cursed?" he whispered. Meanwhile, Daniel and the villagers prepared to march toward the city. Mr. Harris stood beside him. "The people are ready, my king. They've waited for justice long enough." Daniel placed the crown into a woven basket and covered it gently. "This crown belongs to the people. When we reach the gates, I will not fight with weapons, only with truth." Samuel looked worried. "What if truth is not enough?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Then I'll make them see it with their eyes." At dawn, The villagers began their march. Drums echoed through the valley. Women carried torches. Men raised their voices in unity. From the palace towers, Raymond watched them come, hundreds of them, walking behind one young man in simple clothes, holding no weapon, only courage. For the first time, Prince Raymond's hands shook. He whispered, "This can't be happening." But the sound of the drums kept growing louder. The river flowed toward the city gates, following Daniel like a living force, and the wind carried the chant of the people, "The rightful king has returned." The morning sun rose over Green Valley like a drumbeat of war. The people gathered at the gates of the city, farmers, traders, elders, mothers, all standing behind Daniel. Their faces were tired, but their eyes were bright with hope. The sound of drums rolled across the land. Boom, boom, boom. Daniel stepped forward, his pendant glinting in the light. Samuel walked beside him, holding the basket that carried the crown. "Today," Daniel said softly, "truth enters the city." Inside the palace, panic grew. Guards rushed through the corridors, shouting orders. Prince Raymond stood by the window, watching the endless crowd gather outside. "Your Highness," Chief Marco stammered, "they demand to see you." "The boy is with them." Raymond turned slowly. His face was pale, but his pride held firm. "Then they will see their king," he said. He dressed himself in gold and red, colors of fire and blood, and placed the royal crown on his head. His reflection in the mirror looked strong, but his eyes told another story: fear. The palace gates opened with a heavy groan. Daniel stepped forward with the people behind him. The crowd fell silent. Raymond stood at the top of the marble stairs, soldiers flanking him. His voice thundered through the courtyard. "Who are you to come here and challenge my throne?" Daniel lifted his chin. "I am Daniel, son of King Edward. The river that carried me away has brought me back." A gasp spread through the crowd. Raymond laughed, but his laughter cracked halfway. "You dare speak such lies?" "I speak what your heart already knows," Daniel replied. "The river remembers, even if men forget." He opened the basket and lifted the golden crown. The crowd fell to their knees. The sunlight hit the crown, and for a moment it gleamed like a flame. Raymond's hand trembled. He looked at the crown, his father's crown, and something inside him broke. "Enough!" he shouted. "Guards, seize him!" But no one moved. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. The river behind the palace began to stir, its waters rising, swirling. The ground trembled. A loud voice echoed, not human, but deep and powerful, like thunder made of words. "Only the rightful heart may wear the crown." The wind roared. Raymond's crown flew off his head and landed at Daniel's feet. The soldiers dropped their weapons and bowed. Raymond fell to his knees, eyes wide with terror. "This can't be." Daniel looked down at him. "Power is not given to those who crave it. It is given to those who serve." He placed the crown gently on his head. The light from the pendant grew brighter until the entire palace courtyard glowed. When the light faded, Daniel stood tall, no longer a lost boy, but a king. The people cheered. Drums echoed across Green Valley. Tears ran down Samuel's face as he knelt before his brother. Chief Mako bowed deeply. "The throne has chosen." Daniel looked out at the crowd. "No more fear, no more lies. From this day, we rebuild, not for one man, but for all." The cheers grew louder, echoing through the city and into the mountains. Prince Raymond, broken and trembling, was led away. But as he walked past Daniel, he whispered, "You think peace will last?" Daniel met his gaze calmly. only if we protect it with truth. Raymond said nothing more. That night, the city lights burned brighter than ever. The air was filled with songs, laughter, and the sound of freedom. Children danced in the streets, and the river, hush, once silent, sang again. Daniel stood on the balcony of the palace, the wind brushing his face. Samuel joined him quietly. "You did it, brother." Daniel shook his head. "No, we did. And tomorrow, we begin again." He looked up at the stars. "Father, I hope you see us now." And in the gentle ripple of the river below, Daniel thought he heard a voice, soft, proud, and full of peace. The drums of victory had barely faded when whispers began to rise again. Green Valley was free, but freedom has its own storms. King Daniel walked through the palace courtyard at dawn, his robe brushing against the marble floor. The air smelled of wet earth and burning incense. For the first time in years, the city was calm. Yet deep inside, he felt a tremor, the kind that warns before thunder. Samuel entered carrying a scroll. "Another message from the northern traders," he said. "They refuse our market taxes." Daniel sighed. "They supported Raymond once. Now they test us." Samuel frowned. "Shall we send soldiers?" Daniel shook his head. "No, we'll send reason before force. Let them see we rule with wisdom, not fear." Outside the palace, the people celebrated the new reign. The city was alive again. Children danced in the square. Women painted walls with bright colors, and men rebuilt broken gates. But behind the smiles, shadows lingered. A man in dark robes moved through the crowd, unnoticed. His name was Gideon, a loyalist to the fallen prince. His eyes burned with anger. He whispered to a group of men in the alley, "The crown may have chosen Daniel, but the city still bleeds. The time for peace is not now." He raised a small dagger and touched its blade. "We strike from within." That night, Daniel gathered the council in the grand hall. Torches flickered along the stone walls. Chiefs, traders, and elders sat in silence. Chief Marco spoke first. "Your Majesty, peace is fragile. Raymond's followers still plot in the shadows." Daniel nodded. "Peace is not built in a day. We must guard it, not with swords, but with unity." An old woman, the village seer, stepped forward. Her eyes were white as moonlight. "The throne stands, but its roots are young. Beware of the snake that sleeps under calm waters." Her words chilled the room. Later that night, Daniel stood by the riverbank. The water glowed under the moonlight, silent and deep. He removed the pendant from his neck and looked at it. "Father," he whispered, "how do I rule without becoming what I fought against?" The wind rustled through the reeds. A faint whisper seemed to echo back, "Lead with heart, not crown." Meanwhile, in a dark cellar beneath the city, Gideon and his men gathered around a wooden table. Candles flickered, lighting faces filled with rage. "The people think peace has come," Gideon said, "but tomorrow they'll wake to truth." He spread out a map of the palace. "We strike during the harvest feast. When the city dances, we burn the throne." The men nodded, their hands trembling with excitement. The next morning, Samuel rushed into Daniel's chamber. "Brother, we've captured a spy near the southern gate." Daniel turned sharply. "A spy?" "Yes," Samuel said. "He carried this." He handed over a scroll sealed in red wax. Daniel broke it open. Inside were sketches of the palace halls, and one chilling line written at the bottom: "The throne will fall with the moon." Daniel's jaw tightened. So peace comes with a price. That evening, As the moon rose full and heavy over Green Valley, Daniel gathered his most trusted guards. The city celebrated the harvest feast with laughter and drums. Firelights danced in every street, but Daniel's eyes stayed fixed on the shadows beyond the palace walls. He turned to Samuel. "If they come, they must find us ready. Tonight, peace defends itself far away in the hills beyond the river." A torch flickered, the first sign of rebellion. And deep in the city, Gideon whispered to his men, "For Raymond." The drums of joy mixed with the silence of danger. And once again, the rightful throne stood at the edge of another storm. The moon hung heavy over Green Valley, pale and watchful. The city glimmered with festival lights, but beneath the music, a darker rhythm beat, the quiet pulse of treachery. King Daniel stood on the palace balcony, the wind brushing his robe. Below him, laughter filled the streets as people danced around the bonfires. It was meant to be a night of peace, yet his heart whispered otherwise. Samuel stepped beside him. "The guards are in position," he said quietly. "No sign of movement yet." Daniel nodded. "They will come when the city sleeps deepest." He gripped the railing, his pendant glowing faintly. But tonight, the river watches. In the shadows of the old market, Gideon gathered his men. Their faces were masked with soot, their eyes burning with hatred. "The people are drunk with joy," he hissed. "By dawn, their song will turn to wails. Burn the palace first. The throne must fall." He lifted a torch, its flame licking the night. "For Raymond," the men echoed, their voices low and venomous. Moments later, the first scream shattered the air. The gates of the lower quarter burst into flames. Panic spread through the festival crowd. Children cried, drums fell silent. Smoke curled into the sky like black serpents. From the palace towers, Samuel saw it all. "They've started," he shouted. Daniel grabbed his sword, the same one that once belonged to his father. Then tonight, peace defends itself. Through the chaos, Daniel and his guards stormed the burning streets. Flames roared around them, painting the night in red and gold. The rebels surged from the alleys, clashing steel with steel. Gideon appeared through the smoke, his dagger gleaming. "You stole his throne," he shouted. Daniel faced him. The throne was never stolen. It was waiting. Their blades met with a sharp cry. Sparks flew. Around them, men fought and fell, the city trembling under the weight of destiny. Gideon swung wildly, rage blinding him. "You are not a king." Daniel blocked the strike and stepped forward, his voice calm but fierce. "A king is not the one who wins the crown. It's the one who guards his people." He disarmed Gideon with a swift move, sending the dagger flying into the fire. Gideon stumbled back, breathing hard. The flames reflected in his eyes, showing fear for the first time. Daniel raised his sword, but stopped. "No more blood. Lay down your hate." Gideon's hand trembled. He looked around, his men defeated, the city guards closing in. Slowly, he fell to his knees. "The throne always belonged to you," he whispered. Daniel sheathed his sword. "No, it belongs to Green Valley." As dawn crept over the horizon, the fires began to die. The river glowed gold once more, washing away the ashes. Samuel approached, his face streaked with soot. "It's over, brother." Daniel looked over the city, scarred but alive. "No," he said softly, "it's just beginning." He walked to the edge of the river where the people gathered, tired and silent. He raised his hand. "My people," he said, voice firm but kind, "we have seen what anger can build. and what it can burn. Let today be the day we rebuild not with pride, but with love. The throne is not a chair of gold. It is the heart of every person who stands for truth. The crowd knelt. Even the rebels bowed their heads. And from the east, the sun broke through, bright and blazing. The light struck the crown on Daniel's head, turning it to fire. For a moment, the whole city glowed. Later that day, in the palace garden, Daniel placed his father's sword beside the throne and whispered, "No kingdom stands by fear, only by faith." Samuel smiled beside him. "Green Valley will never forget." Daniel nodded. "Then peace has truly come." As the brothers walked out to greet the cheering people, the wind carried the sound of drums, not of war, but of rebirth. And from the river, a soft voice seemed to echo once more. The rightful throne will always be guarded by the pure in heart. Dear viewers, what lesson did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear from your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.